Welcome everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining tonight. November 5th we launched how we build momentum to drive out the Trump fascist regime is what we're getting into tonight. I'm Sam Goldman, one of the leaders of Refuse Fascism and host of the Refuse Fascism podcast, and I'm glad to be with you tonight. If you were in DC on November 5th, you know that something historic began. For the first time, thousands flooded the nation's capital, not for a one-day march, but to launch an unrelenting nonviolent struggle to demand what the whole world needs to hear. Trump must go now. Since then, people have come back again and again, rallying at the Supreme Court, organizing on campuses, reaching others who feel that same urgency in their bones. And now we need to take this further, which is why you're here tonight. This Saturday, November 15th, we're we're starting Surround the White House 1.0, nonviolent protests at the seat of power to compel and enable those who can to act to remove this fascist regime now. So before we dive in, a few quick notes so we can move together. This webinar is an organizing space. It's not open to press or authorities. If you are press and you're interested in interviewing Sansara or another leader of Refuse Fascism, you can contact us at press@refusefascism.org. We will be taking your questions. The best way to get us your questions is through the Q&A button that's at the bottom. It has a question mark. We totally encourage you to use the chat. However, it's very easy to lose questions there so that we can make sure to get your questions. We hope that you'll use the Q&A button and we'll come back to as many questions as possible near the end. And right now, let's light up the chat. Tell us, so many have done this already, but if you haven't already, we'd love to hear where you're joining from and one word or phrase on how you're feeling stepping into the movement tonight. And let me take a look at some. We've got folks from Washington, D.C., we've got Berkeley, we've got we've got a lot of California, we've got some Western Mass, we've got North Carolina, we've got Chicago feeling connected. Awesome, awesome. So keep it going, keep it going. And I just want to let people know a couple more things. Everyone here tonight is part of that living momentum for the removal of the Trump regime that we kicked off this past Wednesday, November 5th. Some of you stood on the mall with us, some of you marched with us, some of you watched from home and said, next time I'm there. Wherever you're joining from, you belong here. So tonight we're going to discuss what was launched this past Wednesday and learn more about the next steps and strategy on how we build momentum to drive this fascist regime from power. We're going to hear from volunteers building for November 5th, 15th and the Surround the White House 1.0. And we're going to get clear together on how we can all help build the momentum through outreach and amplification and the material support that sustains this movement. So by the end of tonight's webinar, we're going to get to your questions. You're going to know exactly what to do and where to be on November 15th, the next great surge of people power surrounding the White House, declaring with courage and conscience, Trump must go now. So we are going to jump right into it. I love seeing all the different places that people are joining from and that people are already writing in the chat that they're looking forward to coming back to being in DC. So I want to get right into it by sharing for some of those folks who weren't in DC a little bit of a highlight of what we launched on November 5th. If you could start again. Sorry, you were muted. We still can't hear. Is the audio turned up all the way?
When millions of people rise up, not just once, but with sustained determination, we can compel and enable those within the halls of power to do things that they would never do otherwise.
Watching from the sidelines. We're done hoping someone else will fix this. We are the fix. And what is our demand? Trump must go!
It changes when we stand up in our millions, centered in the nation's capital, coming back again and again, not relenting, demanding that Trump must go.
And hear me clearly. When the blood of a million
demanding that Trump must go.
and hear me clearly. When the blood of Emiliano Zapata, Pancho Villa, running through my veins, I will never, never live on my knees for a fucking clown.
We know that people have demonstrated around the United States. We saw the outpouring of millions and millions of Americans in the No Kings protests in the streets, in towns and communities around the United States a few weeks back. And those were good, and they were righteous, and they were necessary. And it now needs to come to Washington, D.C.
Oh, beautiful and so righteous that you are out here today, but now we have to take these thousands and we need to rapidly become millions. We need to grow. We need to build this momentum, not sometime in the distant future, but starting today, tomorrow, in the coming days and weeks. We have to seize the moment now. We have to seize the momentum and grow.
We'll also put a link if you had trouble hearing. We'll put a link to the that video which you can see on our Instagram along with in on our YouTube. You can see a lot more of highlights, including the voices of students, which we might try to play later. But I encourage you in the meantime to check out our YouTube channel and our Instagram at Refuse Fascism. So without further ado, I want to introduce Sansara Taylor. Sansara is a co-initiator and leader of Refuse Fascism. And Sansara is also the host of the RNL show and is going to give our main presentation tonight. Welcome, Sansara.
All right, very good to be with everybody. Thanks for tuning in on a Tuesday night. Usually we broadcast our webinars on Sunday. We'll get back to our regular schedule. But these are intense times, so we are a little on a Tuesday night, we'll just say it that way. But yes, November 5th, the 1-year anniversary of Trump's election, we launched a new movement, with several thousand people converging in DC to raise the demand in the nation's capital. Trump must go now. People came from Albuquerque, from rural Georgia, from Indiana, from Boston, from Minnesota, from Oxnard, California, from Chicago and Houston and Austin and San Antonio, from Pittsburgh and Erie, from Las Vegas, from the Bay Area, from New York City, from Brooklyn, for those who want to distinguish Brooklyn separate from New York City, I see in the chat. From Asbury Park, New Jersey, from Buffalo, New York, from Iowa, and many other places that I am not mentioning. People came from all over the country. And this matters. And we launched, as you got a tiny taste of in that video, in the nation's capital. We marched to the Capitol. We marched to the Supreme Court. We issued an indictment verbally illegitimate, fascist controlled institutions of power. And we serve notice that we are going to be coming back again and again, gathering from thousands to tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands and soon millions, not stopping until this regime is removed from power. In the days since November 5th, we have marched hundreds strong out to college campuses and rallied and reached out to the students, calling on them to join us. And we've tapped into a tremendous reservoir of outrage and fear about the future and hope at seeing us march through and invite them into this movement. We've marched through neighborhoods of the oppressed, bringing this movement to them, letting them know we are growing a movement to drive the Trump fascist regime from power. You are not alone, and you need to join with this in whatever way you can. We have rallied at the Supreme Court and stood up against Donald Trump's vicious and the Christian fascists and the MAGA movement's vicious attacks on trans people, on LGBTQ rights. We've indicted the illegitimacy of Trump's fascist-packed Supreme Court. We've done events challenging veterans and enlisted people, protests and speakouts to remember that they took an oath to the Constitution, not to a fascist tyrant. And we've supported events held by others, including a vets protest today, held by a coalition of others that we are uniting with in this movement. And we're going to continue. We have events planned, and we are calling on everybody from across this country and from the DC area. If you are here, come out, or if you can get here, come out this Saturday, November 15th at 1 p.m. We are launching the Nonviolent Surround the White House 1.0. And this is going to be 1.0 is going to take place over the course of a week. We're going to do it on this Saturday at 1 p.m. in front of the White House. We're going to then march again through the neighborhoods, rallying more people. The logic of this will become clear as I go forward. We're going to reach out to people again on Sunday. We're going to come back on Monday at 3 p.m. People should walk out of school or leave work early. We're doing things on a weekday. And our launch on November 5th was a weekday. It was a weekday because it was the anniversary of Trump's election, and it was a weekday because it's time for people to disrupt business as usual and come out. Not just that when it's convenient, but when we need to and show up. So we're coming this Saturday, November 15th at 1 p.m. As I said, we're coming back on Monday at 3 p.m., November 17th, in front of the White House. Then we're coming back again the next Monday, November 24th at 3 p.m. Each time we want to grow. And all of this is bringing forward Nonviolent Surround the White House 1.0, which implies, and it will be the case, that there will be a 2.0 with even more numbers, even greater surround. Once again, nonviolent. But the point is, this is growing. And in the midst of this, we are going to be supporting and turning out for the Remove Coalition events on November 20th through 22nd. The whole idea is a continuing and growing presence in the nation's capital, raising the demand, Trump must go now. Now, I want to talk about why we did this and why we need to carry it forward. And there are three basic truths, three profound truths that this movement is standing on. People came because of these. The first truth is that there is no living with fascism. There is no waiting it out. There is no hoping it goes away. It is not only because of the massive, unbearable atrocities that have already happened, alligator Alcatraz, the violent kidnapping, brutalization, and disappearance of brown-skinned people with and without papers, shattering of families, sending people back to countries they don't know or where they'll face torture and death. This is intolerable policy. It's the dismantling of public health, bringing in pseudoscience that's going to cost millions of lives here and already is around the world. It's not only the attacks and the erasure of LGBTQ rights and lives. It's not only the attacks on the media, the attacks on the universities, the attacks on the legal sphere. It's all of these, but it's more than this. The nature of fascism, this is very important to understand. Fascism is a qualitative change in the form of rule. And it means two fundamental things. It means, number one, the atrocities will continue to escalate and expand if it is not stopped, if it is not defeated. And in this country, it comes, as this country has been historically shaped, with a triad of vicious, aggressive, genocidal white supremacy, vicious, revengeous hatred of women and LGBTQ people, a revenge against all the advances, and a vicious, hateful drive to slam people backwards. And it comes with a xenophobic hatred of foreigners and disregard and disrespect of the people of the world and violation of international laws and rights. And so if fascism is not defeated, the atrocities grow in scale and scope. But fascism also violently shuts down any space for people to meaningfully oppose it. And we see this with the categorizing of nonviolent protesters as domestic terrorists. We see this with Trump indicting and seeking to lock up his political opponents again and again and inciting violence against them. This has a destination. And the lesson of history is you need to defeat fascism before it is too late. And it is very dangerously close to too late already. They are moving faster than most people understand and can keep up with. So the truth number one of why we converged in DC and why we have to take this movement forward is there is no living with fascism. Either they're allowed to consolidate and the future is theirs, and it's a very dark future for people here and all over the world, and it is very, very difficult to come back from that. Or we defeat them, which means non-violently driving them from power. It means they cannot have their hands on the levers of power. You cannot just slow them down. They will not be constrained. They must be removed from power. So that's truth number one that drew us here and why we must go forward. Truth number two is not only are the elections way too late, way too late. The damage is being done now. We can't wait a year and a half for midterms for a new wave of people. But an even deeper part of this is there is no reasonable expectation. No one should believe that Donald Trump, a man who incited an insurrection, a man who pardoned the insurrectionists, a man who talks openly about a third term, a man who campaigned saying, if you vote for me, you will never have to vote again, a man who is already rigging the next elections, openly gerrymandering, openly, a man and a movement who have installed 24 election deniers on the state board overseeing elections in 18 states, a man and a movement who have already deployed National Guard and federal agents to election polls in Democratic states and are promising to do so on an even bigger scale in 2026. This man will not respect, and his movement will not respect an election they lose. And counting on the elections, it is A, giving them way too much time. Well, could be that it is far too late, and B, there's no reasonable expectation that he would ever respect an election he does not like. And he's made that clear, and we should believe him. So that's the truth number two. And we're not telling people don't vote. We're not telling people that you can't put some energy into that. We're saying if you rely on that, you are giving up the future. And truth number three is we came because there is a way to defeat Trump MAGA fascism. It is millions of people converging nonviolently in the nation's capital and coming back again and again, growing in numbers, relentless, determined, not stopping until we create the level of profound political crisis in this country that the whole world is seeing. Trump is being repudiated by his own population. All the news cameras are here. Everybody knows this is what's happening. There are millions in the streets of DC and they will not leave. They're demanding Trump must go. And you create the level of profound political crisis where Trump cannot govern this country, he cannot impose his fascist program, and he cannot even hold on to the reins of power. This has been done all over the world. People have driven out hated regimes through mass sustained nonviolent protest, and it can be and it must be done here. And the truth is that this country is deeply, deeply divided. It has not been this divided since before the Civil War. And it is divided in the population. It is divided in people's families. It's divided on almost every school board. It's divided in almost every law firm. It's divided in every institution. And this goes all the way up to the ruling institutions of this country. It goes all the way up to the armed forces of repression and enforcement. There is a profound division between those who are with Trump's lawless shredding of the Constitution and march towards all-out ethno white supremacist, patriarchal, make America great again fascism, and those who, from very different perspectives, oppose Trump's shredding of the Constitution, his lawlessness, his violation of the separation of powers, his trampling of people's rights, and his damage, the damage he is doing to America's standing in the world. Now, there are people who don't like this all the way up into the ruling institutions. Right now, they are on the defensive and they are overwhelmed. And so they've done things to slow Trump down. Some of them have resigned. Some of them have blown the whistle. Some of them have done lawsuits. I'm sure there's other things that go on that are not all public. But they are overwhelmed and they're on the defensive. But that can change. That doesn't change by just calling them up and letting them know how we feel. It doesn't change just by lobbying. It does not change just by coming out every few weeks in one-day protests, as important as the protests have been. The initiative, which side has the initiative within every institution and the ruling institutions, changes when there is a massive political earthquake from below. When the millions and tens of millions who have shown themselves to be deeply opposed to Trump come into the streets in a sustained, nonviolent, but relentless way, centered in the nation's capital and radiating around the country. That's what gives the backing. That's what gives the compulsion. And that's what enables those who are in positions of power to act in ways that they will not act without that compulsion from below, and enables them to play the role that they can and need to play in bringing about Trump's removal. This has to be driven from below. It is possible. We've seen the millions. It is possible. We know there are deep divides all the way up to the top of society. It needs to be driven from below. So these three truths brought us here. It was a minority of society who understands this right now, who knew about this, who A, understands this, and B, knew about it. And they came, as I said, they came from all over the country. We came from all over the country, and we launched something. But now we need to take it higher. We need to do what you heard in that video. We need to go from thousands to hundreds of thousands to millions. Now, it would be much better, and I said this on the stage that day, it would be much better if we had launched with millions of people in DC. It would have been much better. We would have had a much huger impact. Then hundreds of millions, tens of millions across the country would have heard about it. And we would have inspired and been a magnetic force for many more to join us. It would have been heard about, it would have broken the sound barrier in a way that we did not. And it would have attracted people, and we would have gained momentum. It would have already begun the process of repolarizing broadly in society and in the halls of power. It would be better if we had millions. But the truth is that there are millions who care, and we have to reach them. Many of them didn't know about this yet, so we have work to do. And many of them are not yet convinced of the three truths that I just laid out. Many of them think we still have time and can wait for the next elections. Many of them think that the protests are good, but they're not the main thing we need to focus on. And this has been driven home almost every day, and the need for what we are calling for becomes more intense, and the need to struggle with the decent people in this country who do not like what Trump is doing, who do not like this fascism, to win them to see that you need to step it up now. You need to come to DC and join us. I want to talk about the abject capitulation of the Democrats in the last 48 hours to end the shutdown. And right now, I think there are so many people who are so furious at these Democrats for capitulating once again and not getting anything in return, not getting anything. And there are calls coming out for people to respond to this in different ways. Now, I think if you understand this situation deeply and scientifically and in a reality-based way, what this shows yet again is you cannot rely on politics as usual, and you cannot rely on the Democratic Party as a Democratic Party to stand up to and defeat this fascism. It underscores the need for us to drive this from below. But I want to share something that was said by one of the leaders of Indivisible, and I say this because Indivisible has done some very important work, and it speaks for and has mobilized millions of people who hate what Trump is doing. They mobilized the No King's Day protest. I know they had a lot of partners, and that's important, but they were the leading force in it. And it really matters. And they speak for and are leading millions of people who deeply care. But this morning, the co-director, the co-founder, and one of the main leaders of Indivisible, Ezra Levin, put out a letter talking about how livid, incandescent with rage he is at the Democrats for capitulating. But then he says, look, if we can't convince them to fight Trump, we need to get new leaders, and we now need to put our energy into the primaries. We need to primary the Democrats who won't stand up and fight. Well, you can work on that if you want to work on that, but it is not, if we focus on that, if that's your main leading edge of your strategy, this is going to lead to a disaster. It will absolutely surrender the future to these fascists. It goes back to the three truths. Trump is consolidating fascism now. He must be non-violently driven from power now, not in a year and a half. Think of what he's done with the military in the streets. Think of what he's done sending innocent people to Sikat torture dungeon in El Salvador. Think what he's already doing with trying to indict people for voicing their opposition. This we cannot wait a year and a half. It is already an unrecognizable country to anything that these decent people would have thought they would become normalized to even 10 months ago. Think where it will be if we let it go forward. But two, once again, Trump's not going to respect elections he loses. You're not going to bank on winning the midterms and then holding him at bay. Just in the same period of time that these Democrats capitulated, Donald Trump gave out 77 new pardons to people involved in Trump's attempt to steal the 2020 election. This is not getting very much news, but people need to recognize he is continuing to pardon the election theft. Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, Attorney John Eastman, Mark Meadows, Tyler Bauer from Turning Point Action, who is one of the fake electors from Arizona. He has pardoned these people. Now, why would he be giving these people pardons and a clean slate if he was not clearing the way to do it again? Think about that. Focusing on the primaries now and thinking that then you're going to sweep the midterms as a strategy to defeat this is like saying, I'm going to shine a light. We're going to turn on the lights and shine a light on the problems while they are literally surrounding your house and cutting off the electricity. These fascists are breaking the norms. They are breaking the rules. They are not playing by the rules. You are not going to defeat them within those normal channels. It doesn't work like that. And then finally, once again, the third truth is that there is a way to defeat these fascists. It's the millions in the streets in the seat of power non-violently demanding the removal of the regime. And the truth is, there are enough people in power now who are opposed to Trump. There are enough people in power now who are opposed to Trump. We just do not have the political conditions in the country to compel and enable them to act to remove him. Now, would I like it if there was some different people in power? Maybe. Would you like it? Maybe. But right now, there is enough opposition in the halls of power, and it will not change. Even if you got in a new slate of people, the momentum and direction of who has the initiative within the halls of power will not change without the massive nonviolent political earthquake from below that we have been calling for, that we have begun to mobilize, and that now we have to double down on and bring more and more people to DC to join with. The truth is that what changes what has initiative within the halls of power is not an election in a year and a half that Trump is likely to ignore and is way too late. What changes it is the demand asserted from below. This is how all the major advances for people in this country's history have been won. It's how civil rights were won. This wasn't won through an electoral campaign. It was won through freedom rides and sit-ins and walking across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. It was won through people stepping outside of what was politically realistic in the electoral arena and changing changing it through their actions. That's how women's rights were won. That's how LGBTQ rights were won. And to quote or paraphrase the revolutionary leader Bob Avakian, who I follow, even the right to vote was not won by voting. Think about that. Even the right to vote was not won by voting. People, we have won these rights that are under attack today by stepping outside of the electoral arena and asserting a demand from below in a relentless and a determined and uncompromising way. And there are enough of us right now to do that. There are enough people opposed to Trump in power right now for that to have some effect. And the window to do that is now. It will not get easier later. And Trump is purging people in power. It will be harder from above and it will be harder from below. The best and most opportune conditions for this are right now. So this is what we have begun. And this is what we have to double down on and grow right now very quickly. So, and we have to make an argument through our actions, our bodies in the streets in DC, and through what we say and verbalize these three truths to the decent people, to the tens of millions who care to come join us. So I want to come back to what we're doing concretely and conclude with this. If you are in the DC area, we are calling on you to step up your involvement, to come out on the 15th, all weekend, Saturday the 15th, come out again on Sunday to spread the word, and come back on Monday the 17th in front of the White House. Join us in the activities with the Removal Coalition, the 20th through the 22nd, and come back again at 3 p.m. Monday the 24th as part of Surround the White House 1.0. If you're in DC and you can, open up your home. Ask your neighbors to open up their homes. Ask your networks, your congregation, people you know through different networks to open up their homes to volunteers who are coming in from around the country. This is a very important part of hosting this movement here in DC. If you are from a different area, get to DC, travel here. Come this Saturday, November 15th. We need more people here, many times more people here. Come and stay as long as you can. If that's staying through Sunday and help do outreach and organizing with us, stay through Sunday. If you can, stay through Monday the 17th when we're going to be back in front of the White House. Even better, stay all the way through the 24th. Come for 10 days. That way you're part of the going out to the Removal Coalition events, the 20th through the 22nd, and back again on Monday the 24th. And we will be announcing more soon as we talk with our partners. But come and stay as long as you can. That's number one. If you're in DC or from around the country, come for these days. Two, wherever you are, spread the word of this Trump must go now movement on social media. Spread the graphics that Refuse Fascism has put out. Shine a light on what is going on in DC. Make your own video about why you are coming to DC. Make your own video about why you went to DC if you came here and what you learned, what you were a part of, and why others should go. It doesn't matter if you have 10 followers. It doesn't matter if you have 10,000 followers or 10 million. Make posts about this. Post every day about it and spread the word. Third, donate and raise funds. This is an all volunteer effort. We need to logistics, we need signs, we need to pay for our organizing center. There's tremendous costs to fund and fuel a movement like this. To make the orange bandanas that say Trump must go now and all the other things that go into putting this movement together. Please donate at refusefascism.org/donate and raise money, which is also a way of letting others know about this movement, making them aware of it and bringing them into it. You can have a house party, you can do a bake sale, you can go to friends and who have major resources and set up a meeting with Sam Goldman or myself or others to tell them about this movement and ask for them to donate. We can work together to raise the money to fund this movement. And fourth, I want to say to all the people who came from around the country, you now need to be, as some of you have already gone back home or will be soon, you need to be an ambassador of this movement to others. And we want people to host report backs, to hear from the volunteers, to spread this movement. If you are not comfortable speaking on your own and you want to be paired up with somebody else, reach out to us and we will work with you. If you want to host an event and you weren't able to come and you want to invite somebody who did come to DC to speak to you and your friends or your church group or your synagogue or your mosque or your class or your knitting circle or whatever network you're part of, reach out to us. We need everybody who came to DC to go back and be a seeding machine across this country to spread the word of this movement and to organize others to get to DC behind you. Come back if you can, or help send others behind you. So everyone has a role to play and a way that they can contribute to this movement. I'm sure there are other ways, but I wanted to mention those 4 ways and conclude by saying we really are in a race against time. This fascist juggernaut is moving extremely fast to consolidate. Its crimes are mounting by the day, and it is becoming more and more clear that the courts will not stop this fascism. The Democratic Party is not going to stop this fascism. Congress is not going to stop this fascism. The only recourse that people have is us in our millions. And we are millions if we assert our collective power in the only way that can realistically be relied on to defeat this fascism, which is a movement of millions centered in the nation's capital, demanding Trump must go, not stopping until that demand is won. So, in the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America. Trump must go now.
Thank you so much, Sansara. And I want to let people know that in the chat, some of the ideas that Sansara pointed to, there's links to follow those ideas through and make them real. I want to now introduce Kate, a volunteer with Refuse Fascism and Handmaid's Army DC, who was out not only on November 5th, but in the days after, and has been such a big part of building for this launch, which includes Refuse Fascism. Refuse Fascism initiated it, but is not only Refuse Fascism. And I'm just so glad that you're here, Kate. And I'm going to pass it over to you.
Hi, thanks, Sam. Hi, everybody. My name's Kate, and as Sam was saying, I've been in DC from last Tuesday night, and I'm going home tomorrow, and then I'll be back. Losing my voice a little bit from all of the cheering and whatnot. And I'll be brief. A little bit of a background story is everything happened last year, a year ago. I had so much grief. I was angry. I was heartbroken. I needed somewhere to kind of channel all of that energy and find something. And I ran into a protest where Refuse Fascism was hosting, and their message, which has been talked about a lot already, that we need to do more, and that Trump and all of the powerful people that he has put into place all need to go. And it's not going to, Congress isn't going to work. It's not going to work through elections, the courts, any of that stuff. And at the time, nobody else that I had been talking with really was on board with that. So when I heard their mission and I heard the plan, I instantly knew that these were my people. I didn't feel alone anymore. I could share my grief. I could share our victories, and work together, come together and work together to make headway to get this regime out of here. Our humanity is our strength, and a lot of people are saying differently. They're trying to tell us that that's different. It's our strength, our sameness, our differences in thoughts and opinions and ideas. We need all of those things to work under that one banner: Trump must go now. So, as I said last week in DC and this week too, I have seen the movement grow in number. I have seen it grow in momentum. I have experienced a lot of different subgroups, from Handmaid's Army of DC, which is a newer one, with Flair USA, 5501, Indivisible, Jolly Good Ginger, some of the veteran platforms as well, all coming together. And this is kind of the first time that I've seen all of that coming under the one banner and embracing the same plan. Trump needs to go, and this is how we do it. We're going to remove him and his people by that sustained protest in the streets, coming back and back again and again together. After all this is done, people have different thoughts and ideas for what the nation could look like, and there will be time to kind of work through that. But right now, we just need to agree to oust them and come together to do that. And I will tell you that something feels different in all of the rallies that we had. We had different marches through different neighborhoods, but a lot of the powerful speakers, and just seeing those groups coming together and supporting each other, showing up for each other. It there's an excitement, I think, a hope that we can really do this, right? If we come together, we can really do this, and we can. And there's a joy, and this is something that it's hard to kind of explain, but there's a joy when we're out there. We are using music, we are using artistic creativity. We're just coming together and literally dancing in the streets. I know after, I think it was Friday, we were at the Supreme Court, and we had a rally there. And when the rally was done, somebody had put on some music, and Refuse and Handmaids and all of the people in the crowd, like, we just started a dance party, and everybody was dancing together and laughing. And it just felt so good and so freeing, and just so nice to have that hope and that joy and share that with one another. So for me, I can't not do this. Social justice it's in the fibers of my soul. I'm a social worker. I'm a mental health therapist that works with people with their trauma. For me, this isn't voluntary, it's necessary. And I truly, truly feel that the momentum is really, really growing. So I'm really excited, and I am happy that all of you are joining us as well and joining this community. You're not alone anymore. And you've got people all across the nation working together and coming together to make this all stop. Oh, and one other thing to piggyback off of what Samsara was saying about needing funds. So I've been to the organization center. It is an awesome space where food and meals are delivered, and volunteers. I mean, the room is filled with volunteers who are eating together and talking together, and again, sharing their joy, sharing their frustrations, just sharing that sense of community. And we need money for this stuff. We need money for rent. We need money to print all of the beautiful flyers and banners and posters that are going out everywhere. I can't tell you how many people asked me for those orange Trump Must Go Now bandanas while we were out there. I mean, they have been a huge hit. So I just want to throw a thought at you that if you yourselves can offer something, whatever would be a reach for you, whether that's $1, $10, $20, maybe $100, whatever you can donate to the cause, it's a way of immediately joining in the resistance and asking friends and family, thinking outside the box. What professional networks are you involved in? What social networks, like a book club or a wine club or whatever those things may be, to talk to them about what we're doing and how to do that, and the need for funds to keep this going so people can continue to come in and stay in DC. And ask, like, your local cafes or your local coffee shops, and see if they'll let you put up a poster and a QR code, or if they would be willing to kind of sponsor with a fee. Just get creative. And so yeah, something is definitely different, and it feels really good, and it's very cool to just see everybody coming together day after day after day. That's what's different about all of this.
Thanks so much, Kate. And I do have to say that that image of the handmaids marching in front, um, on November 5th, like, it did give me the chills, when you all walked in and then we're leading the march. It was so remarkable, and it really made a difference. I want to welcome another volunteer, Athena, on. Athena lives on the other side of the country, in California, and has come to DC to help make this launch happen. and put her life on hold to do that and is staying in DC to make, this Surround the White House 1.0 that we are starting on this Saturday at 1 p.m. possible. So I wanted to welcome you, Athena, and give you an opportunity to share a little bit about what motivated you to kind of put your life on hold and volunteer a little bit about what you've been doing and why others should join you in DC. In DC.
Hi, everybody. I'm losing my voice because I've been out there uh, day after day. I organize in Southern California. I am from LA County. Um, and I did decide to put my life on hold to be out here. There were some lovely people who were fundraising out there to get LA people to DC. And then once I got here, the first day started fundraising for my food and transportation. And I was sending random texts to random people that I don't know very well. And I was able to raise money to be here um, until early December at least. I put myself on the housing committee. This means the world to me. I don't just organize with Refuse Fascism. That's the national branch of what I do, but I also organize locally with two other groups that I'm a part of. And I've seen at least two of my neighbors every day are disappearing. Kids are too scared to go to school. My parents are veterans. I'm with someone who's activated right now. He's in the National Guard. He's helping with food distribution. So seeing our troops also be used to monitor U.S. citizens has also made it very personal. But even before it was personal, it was just about seeing other lives being at risk and knowing that if fascism continues to grow in the United States, it puts the entire world at risk. It puts every life, not just human, but every life at risk that we get to share this earth with. So I'm very grateful to be here. I've been reading the comments as I've been watching this. You don't have to come as Refuse Fascism. You don't. If you want to ignore us while you're out there in DC, ignore us. Pretend we don't exist. Just get out here. That's the whole point. I'm a democratic socialist and Refuse Fascism. I work with communists all the way to conservatives, and I have differing political viewpoints with many people that I organize with. But the point is, we're all at risk. Our earth is at risk. Our empathy is at risk. Our humanity is at risk. Um, if you don't agree with someone, don't be around them. We're not in a political crisis. We're in a humanitarian crisis. So get your group down here. Fundraise. I was trying to crochet things. I taught myself how to crochet like 4 months ago to fundraise to get out here so that I could sell beanies. Like it was just a bit frustrating. Get out here, ignore us. Just put your bodies in DC. So they can't ignore us anymore. So they can't scroll past our videos. So they can't lie about how many people in the United States are against the fascism that's happening in the United States. So thank you for letting me speak. I got a little passionate, but I'm very grateful to be out here and I'm grateful for the people I organize with, regardless of their political backgrounds.
And Athena, we are so grateful for you and all the passion and all the care for humanity that you have thrown in with your full heart to the fight. So it really matters to have you here and to have you calling others to join you because it really does matter when we are together in DC and we feel our power. I know that we began to feel it, and what what Kate was saying about the hope and the joy that you feel when you see how we really could change everything, I think is really important. So I just thanks for sharing that. And if you are inspired by Athena to come and volunteer, people are going to be putting it in the chat so that you can sign up to volunteer to come to DC to bring your people. I wanted to share a couple concrete organizing items that I know people were excited to have. So I'm going to ask if the screen could be reshared. And while that's happening, I'm going to let you know that I'm going to share a few organizing points, and then we're going to hear from Jim Keady responding to some things in the chat and get into some of your questions. But while the screen is coming up, I wanted to share some things that were in the chat that struck me. Um, Mona saying we are all at risk. Um, People that are saying that we're commenting about how far this has gone. Um, Miriam's sharing a strategy to go outside with a poster and ask people to take a photo and put it on Instagram. Um, People like David talking about this is our humanity, this is about our humanity. James commenting who could agree with fascism. Um, so I just wanted to share some of that, and now the screen is up. So I did want to let people know that there is a coalition that came together for November 5th and that needs to grow, that needs to strengthen. And if you're part of a group, if you're part of a network, um, join into this. And I as that's up, if you want to scan it, you can fill it out right now if you're the leader of a group, or send it and share it to people in your network. But while that's up and you're scanning it, I did want to share four guiding points on how we can win that Refuse Fascism has. If you were out in the streets with us November 5th or onward, you've heard them in cadence form. But our four guiding points on how we win are that one, our single unifying demand is the Trump fascist regime must go now, and in the name of humanity, we cannot stop until the regime is removed. Two, this movement is nonviolent while determined and unrelenting. Our strength and power lies in the millions of people converging in DC to stop fascism. Step into this movement now. Three, unite all who can be united against Trump MAGA fascism, overcome all divide and conquer schemes. We will disagree on many things, but learn to work together because this is the only way we win. And four, turn every attack from the regime into further exposure of the illegitimacy of the regime and the need for more people to step into this movement to defend those under attack and join the fight to drive the regime from power. So if you, your group, agree with these things, now's the time to partner to make this real. So I just wanted to share that, and you can go to the next slide. So there's four things that you can do right now. I'm going to dig a little bit more into a few of them, but these are echoing what Sansara said. First, come to DC as soon as you can, stay as long as you can. You can stay, if you're somebody who can come the 15th and you can stay through the 22nd, great. If you can stay from the 15th to the 24th, even better. You can stay, through the month of November, wonderful. If you are somebody who can come back and forth a few times, do that. If you can come once, that matters too. Come to DC. Two, mobilize your friends, your group, your congregation to join you in DC. Three, post a short video about why you are coming to surround the White House this Saturday, November 15th, and why Trump must go now. And four, donate and fundraise to fuel this growing, sustained nonviolent resistance to drive out the Trump regime. Many people have put in the comments, people don't know about this. You can be part of changing that. We could do so much with more funds for advertising in particular to get this break through, this algorithm BS and actually be seen on Instagram. It costs about $10,000 to reach all of DC um, for a week through Instagram ads. So if that's something that matters to you, you should donate to make that real. And if you're somebody who thinks more about street saturation, to get large scale movie size posters up, that's thousands of dollars as well. So today is a great night to commit to fundraising and donating to this cause. Next slide, please. So come to DC and stay. I put some key dates up. Um, when you scan this QR code, you'll get to share um, skills that you want to contribute to this movement. You'll also be able to sign up for some of the many volunteer teams uh, that are happening right now in DC. Everything from art to sounds to logistics to helping with marshals to helping with legal to helping with press. There's so many ways to be part of this. There's so many ways to contribute your talents to this effort. So I'm just going to leave that up for 1 second so folks can scan it. You can also go to refusefascism.org and just hit the come to DC button. And we can go to the next slide and hopefully people can put that in the link as well. So again, just to make sure that we get these concretes to you, Surround the White House 1.0 has 3 dates. The first date starts this Saturday, November 15th at 1 p.m. And the convergence point is 16th Street Northwest and 8th Street Northwest. And then it continues Monday, November 17th and Monday, November the 24th. And you can find that action schedule, yes, at refusefascism.org's website, but you can also find it at the trumpmustgo.org coalition site. And like all our protests, these are nonviolent actions. Another thing that Sansara had mentioned was recording and posting a video. Again, no matter what your platform size is, this is something that you can do. You can do it tonight, right after we're done. Just a few pointers. You want to keep it short. You want to film vertical, like how you see things online. You want to speak from the heart. It doesn't need to be perfect, just why we need to surround the White House on November 15th, why Trump must go now, and post it wherever you're active. If you're somebody who's active on Blue Sky, post it there. If you're active on TikTok, post it there. If you're active on Instagram, post it there, wherever you are active. And you can use the hashtag Trump must go now. You can do Flood DC or Fall of the Regime. And be sure to tag Refuse Fascism and your favorite influencers. And if this is something that you can commit to doing, let us know in the chat. Give a thumbs up that you're going to make a video. And if you're somebody who can't come to the 15th, but you were there on the 5th and you want to pass the baton and encourage people to come out on the 15th, you can do that in your video too. Okay. I see Noelle. I see you, Pat. Keep letting me know in the chat if this is something you can commit to doing by giving a thumbs up, and we're gonna go to the next slide. We've said this before, and we'll keep saying it again because it's a tremendous way to be part of this movement is fundraising and donating. And there's so many creative ways that people can fundraise this time of year, whether it be bake sales or talent shows, drag bingos or just telling people about it and asking friends and family on social media or however you like to ask, picking up the phone and having that real conversation, asking a relative or coworker with means to throw in. This really makes a difference in all of us contributing what we can, especially those of us who can't be in DC ourselves. We can help support to get buses to DC, to spread the word through social media advertising and advertising on the streets so that everybody knows that DC is the place to be to demand the immediate removal of this regime. Next slide. I wanted to encourage those of us who were there on the 5th um, to host a report back, to share their experience being part of this history making day. Um, Whether you gather some friends in a living room, whether you speak at your place of worship, or gather folks at a community center, or if you're a student and, give a report back to your student club, this is a really important way to get more people to DC by sharing why we're doing it and the difference that it makes. And it can easily be turned into a fundraiser towards the cost of the bus to mobilize people to come back to DC, or in just overall support of this effort. Next slide. For those in the DC area, there were many things already shared about ways to support. Uh, Contributing supplies is one of those ways, whether you can drop off a case of water, some snacks, whether you can get some sandwich supplies or gift cards to grocery stores for volunteers. If you have lots of old art supplies, everything from markers to paint, those are needed. We always need batteries for bullhorns, and always need band-aids and other medic supplies. So you can call, you can DM us on social media to coordinate drop off. And I think we're going to skip that because we were having issues with sound. And to get in touch, you can email us. You can find us on social. The second handle is for TikTok only, and the first handle is on all other platforms. And I hope that that gave you some concrete ways that you can step into this starting right after we're done this Zoom. We're going to get into your questions. And to start that off, I am going to bring in Jim Keaty to speak to some of what he noticed in the chat. Let me see, Jim, if I can find you. Jim, if you're still here, if you could raise your hand. Thanks. So Jim's just rejoining, and I know that Jim, you wanted to speak to some of what was in the chat.
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Keaty. Hello from New Jersey. I'm back in Jersey, getting back to DC this weekend. Looking forward to seeing many of you in the streets. And there's one in particular person, Chris, who's raised some questions, concerns, and these are things that we've heard, I think, over the weeks and months as we've been organizing for this. And what I want to say to whether you're a frontline organizer or if you're just getting involved with this and you have people asking you questions as you're inviting them to become part of the Refuse Fascism movement, yes, we should address these concerns and we shouldn't get bogged down in them. If someone is continually isn't on board, then you just go, okay, hey, we got to move forward. So the first thing that we all have to agree on, and I think we do, is that Trump must go now. So I think everybody can raise their hand and say, yes, we agree on that 100%. Next, I would like to believe that we all agree that it is going to take millions of people in our nation's capital, in the actual seat of power, not diffused out across 50 states that stretch 3,000 miles east to west and 1,500 miles north to south. There has to be a concentration of American citizens in the nation's capital, physically present and demanding that Trump must go now. We know that 3.5% rule that gets thrown out a lot, where social scientists will say that it takes 3.5% of the population to be out in the streets and leveraging pressure to topple an authoritarian regime. And yes, but it needs to be concentrated in the capital. It cannot be out all over the place. So what we hear at times, and we've heard from Chris and some others tonight and in other chats that we've had, well, what's the battle plan? What exactly are we going to do? Right? We need a plan. It's got to be specific. And the reality is your battle plans can't always be specific. And you have to change your plans on the fly. Right? So we have the rallying cry for battle. Trump must go now. We have the call that millions of people need to get to the nation's capital. We are developing things for people to do every day to be exercising their First Amendment rights in the streets of the Capitol. The regime is going to present us with some things to respond to, and we are also going to go on the nonviolent attack in pressuring them. So, this is me as a coach. I'm an athlete. I still coach now. I have played sports for 50 years plus of my life. And, when you're putting together a game plan to take on an opponent, yes, here's the style we want to play. Here's how we're going to attack. Here's what we're going to defend. This is what we're going to try to do on set pieces. This is how we'll try to respond when they come at us in this way. And then the game happens and you have to adjust to it. But you stay true to the way that you want to play and what the core goal is. And the core goal for us is that Trump must go now, and that we will need 10 million people in the nation's capital leveraging pressure in the streets, being physically present to create that reality. If we think of World War II, right? And let's just think about when the Allies got fully committed and they stormed the beaches at Normandy, right? Well, when they won, when they broke through the Nazi front lines there, was it the paratroopers that dropped in the night before? Was it the Navy that was shelling from a mile or two out? Was it the infantry forces that came on and broke through the sand barriers? Was it the hard armor that got onto the beachhead and then were able to push through? Okay, the answer is C or E. It was all of the above. And that is what we have to realize. It's not going to be one thing that is going to topple the Trump regime. It is going to be these coordinated efforts with an overarching singular goal that Trump must go now that will bring this about. Right? One other thing that people I see in the chat, and I've heard this over and over again, well, we need a general strike. We need a general strike. A general strike would be fantastic. We need to deal with the reality of the labor movement landscape in the United States. Post-World War II, 47% of American workers were in trade unions. We're under 10% now. And when we talk about a general strike, we need to be thinking about, well, when it's done in other countries, if you see that happening in a country in Europe, their labor movements have way more experience just in terms of longevity that they've existed. And they're bigger, right? There are a lot more people that are involved in the trade unions, and they're able to get key unions bought into that general strike that will stop, say, the subways from running, that will stop the buses from running, that will stop the ports from being able to receive and deliver goods. We don't have that here in the United States. Our trade union movement is not on board with this yet. And what has to happen at times, and this is going to sound counterintuitive, the leaders follow where the people go in massive institutions, right? The leadership isn't leading on this stuff. So it's going to be rank and file workers. It's going to be everyday citizens like us that are going to force the leaders to pull those levers that they have control over at the AFL-CIO as an example. Right. So when people talk of this idea, we got to have a general strike. Agree. It will be fantastic. And it would probably bring the regime to its knees really quickly. How we tactically and technically get to that point is going to demand millions of rank and file workers demanding of the leadership of their unions to do something like that. Right. So you just got to recognize the landscape. What are the things have I got written down here? Okay, I want to show this, right? I hope everybody can see. I set up my Jenga set here. And if we're thinking about our movements as this Jenga set that's been stacked up, well, you got Refuse Fascism is in here. That's a piece, right? And you've got, Indivisibles getting on board, and that's a piece. And you got students coming on board, and that's a piece. And then maybe the trade unions get involved, and that's a piece. And then you've got through mass movements in the street, some elected officials find their courage and start exercising things in the halls of power. And then eventually, one of these things, and who knows what it's going to be, is going to topple the regime. We don't know exactly what it's going to be, but we do know that through historic analysis, through social scientific analysis, what it takes. So I pulled up one example, and I want to encourage everybody to do this. Use the encyclopedia you can tap into on your phone and just type in, how do authoritarian regimes get removed by citizens? Right? One country, South Korea. The April Revolution in 1960, it was mass protests. June Democratic Struggle, 1987, widespread demonstrations compelled the authoritarian government to institute direct presidential election. That led to their now democratic system that they have. The candlelight protests in 2016, hundreds of thousands of people protested against the president, demanding her resignation over corruption allegations. 2024, very recently, the martial law crisis. Protests erupted after the president declared martial law. Energy helped influence the National Assembly. So in that case, it was the people in the streets. You literally had members of the National Assembly climbing walls and crawling into windows to be able to get in to vote, right? To be able to oust the president in that situation. So in different situations, different realities were created, different leveraging points and pressure points were created, but we know some consistent things that have to happen. One, a clear demand. In this case, Trump must go now. Two, millions, 3.5%. So in our case, given that we have roughly 330 million people in the United States, that means if we go with 3.5%, we're going to need about 10 million people focused in the nation's capital in Washington, D.C. And when we get those numbers there, as we grow the numbers we have now, and we get to that critical mass of people, we will be developing different ways of exercising that power in the streets, in the halls of power, on different institutions. And, when nothing attracts a crowd like a crowd, I forget that band from the 80s or the 90s that had that in there. Put that in the chat if you know. Nothing attracts a crowd like a crowd, and people will respond. Leadership will respond to the demands of the people. And then it could be something that Congress does to remove Trump. It could be that Trump himself goes, you know what? I'm tired of this. It was a pain in the butt getting in and out of this building today. I'm sick of all these people screaming, and I'm going down to play golf in Mar-a-Lago. Have at it, JD Vance, right? We don't know what will bring about that end result, but we need to stay focused on what the end result is. We need to continue to organize and mobilize more and more of our fellow citizens and our neighbors and get them to Washington, D.C. And then we, with Refuse Fascism and with other groups that will get on board, will develop creative ways of exercising that mass group of Americans that join us to put that pressure on our elected officials in the Congress, on the courts, and on the executive. All right, I hope that is helpful. If people have questions based on what I just said, drop them in the chat. Maybe I'll answer them typewritten, or if I get pulled back on to answer them, I will do that as well.
Thanks so much, Jim. I wanted to say to Miriam, I think it was, yes, we will do a video of Jim's analogy. I think it's a great idea. Since I didn't know if you wanted to speak to anything that Jim just said, or if there were any other question, or if you wanted to answer any other questions.
I was engrossed and I wasn't looking at other questions. So do you have any? I know there's a lot of them. I answered some in the chat. Some of them were covered by what Jim just said. Do you have something you want to pull out?
Yeah, I will. I'll ask one that didn't come up, that came up prior, that I think is still relevant. How do I answer people who say, I'm working locally, we've got to protect our neighbors when I talk to them about coming to flood DC?
First of all, the work that people are doing locally to defend people against the violation of their rights and their lives by ICE and other federal agents, illegitimate abuse of their rights and trampling of their rights and their lives, absolutely essential, heroic, important, and we need to see much more of it. So that needs to be clear, and it's an essential part. All the nonviolent, non-compliance, defiance, refusal, and defending of people's rights and lives that's going on is essential and needs to step up. The reason why we initiated this movement to drive Trump from power nonviolently, centered in the nation's capital, is a recognition that unless and until Trump is removed from power, he will escalate and overwhelm the best opposition and resistance that people can marshal. And we've seen this already. This is everybody knows that more people have been deported and disappeared and tackled and kidnapped and deprived of their rights and their livelihoods and violated their due process than have been allowed that because of the heroic and righteous opposition of people protecting their neighbors. I think right now in Los Angeles, there are 4,000 students in the public school system who are missing this year. And that's just in Los Angeles, 4,000 who are missing, and nobody knows. Their teachers don't know, the state doesn't know, the city doesn't know whether they have been deported, whether they have self-deported because their parents were deported, whether their whole family is self-deported, whether they are in detention, disappeared, whether they are hiding in their homes. Many are hiding in their homes. Many immigrants and immigrant families are hiding. A woman who came to our protest this weekend testified afterwards about going to visit a loved one who had built a hiding space in her closet. And when she knocked on the door too loud and too aggressively to go visit her loved one went to hide because she was afraid it was ICE. Now, think about that. That's the reality. And this is before Trump's 10 billion more dollars or whatever the number is now that are being, I'm mixing up the numbers, but it's billions more infused into ICE. This is before it's been scaled up. They're still on a spree to hire 10,000 more in the near term. That's what their hiring bonuses are about. This is just the beginning, and that's just the front of ICE. You could do it the same. We've seen an outbreak in measles and young children who have died. This hadn't happened for generations. This is back. And we're going to see more of this with RFK in charge of healthcare. We have seen many, many, many people around the world dying already because of the cutoff of USAID. The truth is that the heroic and righteous resistance that people are waging cannot keep pace with the juggernaut, the accelerating, escalating juggernaut of fascism. And the only way we win is by getting off the defense and going on the offense. And that means driving the regime from power. Everybody who hates Trump's attacks on their neighbors, on science, on the rule of law, on women, on trans people, on the environment, on international law, the international assassinations and threats of new wars, the nuclear escalations with re-announcing nuclear testing, which endangers all of humanity. Everybody who opposes any piece of this or all of it, we need to come together and go on the offense to drive the regime from power. All of these struggles will be served by removing the regime, and absent that, all of the best resistance that we could wage will be overwhelmed by what this regime is doing. And so it's not stop what you're doing and come to DC. It's bring more people into what you're doing locally and send more people to DC. We need to wake up. Most people are still sitting this out. They're coming out once in a while. They think they can vote and wait. They think they can protest every few weeks and wait. They think they can speak out in their private lives. And they're being told that. 10 tips for surviving fascism. Here's a few things you can do to lessen the horror and wait till it blows over. No, We have to all step it up. We have to move many more people into this struggle. So our vision is not to stop all the local resistance and everybody get to DC. Our vision is send as many people as you can to DC. And yes, that's going to mean some people who are doing things locally are going to come to DC instead. But through taking the offense against the regime as a whole, we are aiming to inspire and challenge more people to step up nationwide, to join us in DC and to step up where they are. And I think what we have seen in the examples that Jim gave around the world is once you start to get momentum and initiative with a movement to unseat a regime, it inspires people to come off the sidelines and it multiplies the effect rather than having to calculate, are we going to protest here? Are we going to defend here? Are we going to go there? As if it's a zero-sum game. No, the more that we take the offense, the more we draw more people into this, the more that we're going to have people standing up and there'll be a positive synergy there. But I will say the most decisive thing, the thing that history is going to pivot on, is whether the regime is unseated. And that's where we have to put our principal efforts. And that's going to mean, yes, people coming here. And I will say one of the people who spoke on November 5th very powerfully, and you saw him in the beginning video, is a immigrant rights activist and leader who has been spearheading a lot of the defense and the ICE Watch in Little Village, one of the places in this country that has been the hardest hit and terrorized by ICE. And he came and he brought a carload of volunteers, young volunteers, and he came and he made the point, as he did before on one of these webinars, that we are going to have to go on the offense. The regime must be driven out. And that there's a unity between these struggles, but we all have to step it up and come to the nation's capital around this.
Absolutely. And for folks who want to hear more from Jim, since that's been in the chat, to hear from Balthazar and other voices from November 5th, I want to encourage people again to go to the website and to listen to the clarity of which diverse voices came together to make this demand. Um, and I want to make sure that we state again the information for Saturday. We're going to be converging at 1 p.m. this Saturday, November 15th at 16th Street Northwest and 8th Street Northwest. And that's going to be, I believe, the same location for the subsequent Monday's actions. For those who were wondering, it was answered in the chat, but I will also verbalize it. Yes, we will be at Remove the Regime, the rally on November 22nd, and you should be too. We should be flooding DC, and I'm looking to see if there was any questions that we didn't speak to. I feel like we spoke to most of them. For those who have questions regarding the mechanisms, there's more on the website as well on um, how the power of the people can remove a regime. There's a lot actually on refusefascism.org about that. So if people are more interested in that, I would encourage people to go there. Um, I I think that those were the main questions, but Sansara or Jim, if there's a question that you see that oh yes, and on the podcast. Um, for I'm looking at the chat more questions on process and mechanisms. But Sansara or Jim, if there's any other questions that you'd want to speak to.
Jim, is there something else you want to add?
Turn my microphone back on. Yeah, so one thing I'll put out there. I know Chris had put up another couple comments again. Chris, here's what I'm going to offer to you. Get a pen right now. I'm going to give you my phone number. I don't mind putting it out there. My phone number is on the internet because I have run for Congress. I have run massive international campaigns. My number has stayed the same. 732-988-7322. 732-988-7322. So feel free to give me a call and we can walk through some stuff in more detail. Somebody else said, how can you contact me? I just gave you my number. You can also find me on socials at JW JWKEADY. And someone had said, asked if I could go on the road and talk about this stuff. One of the things that I've done over the years, I have lectured at more than 500 schools in 43 different states and multiple countries. I would be more than happy to come to communities around the United States. If you can get some people together to bring this message and teach people, really, this is the educator in me. I used to be a high school teacher as well, why we need to be getting to Washington, D.C. But one last piece that I will offer. And again, it's one person, but we do hear it. We have heard this. Well, what's going to be the exact mechanism? What is the ask we're making of Congress? Is it the 25th Amendment? Is it this? How exactly are you going to drive Trump from power? And the reality is, we don't know what exactly will be the final pressure point. That's why I did my nice little Jenga setup. I can set it up again if you would like. But it could be that the members of Congress, because of the mass amounts of people in the street, find their courage to utilize all the different levers that they have within the halls of power. It may be that a citizen files a lawsuit that quickly finds its way to the Supreme Court, and the judicial finds their courage to create the mechanism that removes Trump from power. It could just be massive people power that make him realize that it's time for him to go. And I'm reminded, I come to this movement as a Catholic liberation theologian who my heroes are Gandhi and King and Jesus and Dorothy Day and Archbishop Oscar Romero. And I think of, there's a scene in the film Gandhi where the English are kind of sitting with them and they're just, they have their attitude as imperialists towards this little brown man, as they called him, who was standing up to the English Empire. And they said, well, what, do you expect that we're just going to leave? Right. And they were so entrenched in India. They controlled everything. They controlled every resource. They controlled all the levers of power. They controlled an entire population that were essentially wage slaves to the service of the English Empire. And Gandhi's response was, and I'm paraphrasing, yeah, eventually you will see it within your own wisdom that it is time for you to go. And it may be that is the moment that gets created that drives Trump from power. So this need for the specificity of what exactly are we going to do? We're not setting a date with Donald Trump. I'm going to meet you at the Irish Tavern at 7:00 on Saturday. We're going to have dinner, drinks, and go dancing, right? No, we are mobilizing mass amounts of people at the grassroots. And we have to be going to them to say, what needs to happen for you to get to Washington, D.C.? Right? What do you need to put your life on hold? And yes, this is what I said on the 5th. It's going to be inconvenience, right? If we think about soldiers who, it's Veterans Day. It's a good day to think of this in that light. When we think about people who serve in our armed forces or have served, whether we agree or not with the military adventures that they were sent on, those people had the courage to say goodbye to their families and go and be willing to give their lives for a cause. And we, as nonviolent warriors, have to have that same level of commitment that, yes, we are going to inconvenience and disrupt our lives, kiss our loved ones goodbye, and go down to Washington, D.C. to wage a nonviolent campaign until a fascist is removed from the White House. That's a pretty cool way to spend your fall and winter and maybe spring. And it will be something that history will judge us very kindly on, that our children and generations to come will judge us very kindly on. Right? So the first step for all of us, are we committed? And then the next step is the practical piece, not on how we'll topple the regime, but how will you get to Washington, D.C. and stay there for as long as you possibly can. And then maybe have to go back home and do some stuff like I do, and then get yourself back down there. And then go home and get yourself back down there. And how are we bringing another 5, another 10, another 15, 2,500 people? And if there's thousands and thousands of us doing this, we end up with the millions and millions that we need to create the critical mass that will topple the regime. I hope that's helpful.
Very much so, very much so. And I think it's a perfect way for us to end. Please know that you if you had a question that may not have gotten answered, uh, that doesn't mean that you will not see an answer to it in a future webinar. There were some great ideas. I think David had a great idea on doing a workshop on storytelling and how we tell this story, and how we can work with people who've never created videos before to create content that tells why people need to be in DC, like Jim was just doing. So know that we are seeing and saving your questions and comments that did not get spoken to speak to them in our social media, our website, and in future webinars. I want to say that I will see you on Saturday, November 15th at 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 16th Street Northwest and 8th Street Northwest. Go to refusefascism.org if you haven't already, to sign up, to get resources, to contribute, and also be sure to go to our Instagram, um, and you can get graphics and other things that you can be sharing, if you want some inspiration or create your own, and be sure to tag us in those videos that you make. And unless, Sansara, you have anything else to say, I'm going to say, well, we're good night, and we'll see you in the streets on Saturday.